If you have the floor, please avoid any background noise and check that you have a stable internet connection. That's for me, and I think I can hand it over now to Philip, and we can move to the next slide, and Philip can introduce the overall meeting.
So good afternoon, everybody, and it's very good to be back. We had a meeting yesterday of the High-Level Construction Forum on Innovation, and this now is our second meeting of these two that we've arranged on innovation. Just to point out for those who may not know the High-Level Construction Forum very well, we have, how many are we at now? We're probably close to 60 attendees. We'll probably have some more. Yesterday we were around 100, and we'll probably have a similar number today. Normally the High-Level Construction Forum is a mixture of industry stakeholders, industry associations, and also companies, but also member state authorities are also invited, and various other NGOs and stakeholders and so on, as well as the European Commission. So that will typically be who is present today, where we can exchange on the latest developments in construction and policy, as well as what's happening out there on the ground. Yesterday we had an excellent introduction and discussion on various aspects of innovation in construction. We heard about robotics, we heard about 3D printing, we heard about prefabrication, especially for new construction, although we touched a little bit on for renovation of buildings as well. We learned that these technologies shouldn't be just discussed in isolation, but quite often they're combined. We saw some fantastic examples of 3D printing where you can just press play and a building comes out. Even you can email a house to somebody at the other side of the world. We learned about the fact that scaffolding is still done in construction today by hand, as it was by the ancient Egyptians all those thousands of years ago. So we're not going forward very quickly on productivity, at least in scaffolding, but we saw some robotic solutions there. We also learned about the huge potential of productivity improvements, resource efficiency improvements, and less waste, more cost effectiveness, and so on. We learned about some of the barriers, some of the action that policies could take to remove some of those barriers. We also talked about some of the research needs for these technologies, and the fact that the cost of labor can also have a big influence on the uptake of innovative solutions in construction. Now, today we're going to have a slightly different focus, more on the data, so on data collection and how we use data for construction, again focusing on the innovative aspects. The discussions we're going to have, similar to yesterday, are going to be divided into 3 panels. Each of them is going to be moderated by my colleague Eleftherios Boudakis from HADEA, which is the executive agency, the European Health and Digital Executive Agency, which manages a number of European funded projects, including ones on innovation and construction. We're going to have a panel on automation, digitalization and the permitting process for buildings, and 3 recently funded projects under the Horizon Europe program, which are all working in that area. So digital permits and compliance checks in construction. We're also going to have a panel on Earth observation and the use of space data. And then the 3rd panel is going to be on other sources of data, such as drones and 3D scanning and other ways to collect data from buildings. And then we'll close with a discussion on bringing innovation to the market and how we can really accelerate that part. Another important thing about these meetings with the High-Level Construction Forum, they are much more than just nice discussions and chances to exchange, although they are that as well. But they are also an important way for us at the European Commission to hear from you, from industry, and also policymakers working outside the Commission on what the needs are, what the challenges are, And the discussions from today we will use in our policy making. For example, we're now at the final stages of drafting the transition pathway for construction to become more green, digital and resilient. And that is something that we've been discussing through the High Level Construction Forum now for a good year or so. But there is some element of the transition pathway that is relevant for research and innovation. And so today's discussions will certainly be taken into account when we are putting that document together, which we will be publishing then sometime either side of the end of the year or start of next year when it's finished. That's probably enough for me now. We can go straight into the first discussions and the first presentation, which is going to be my colleague Eleftherios Bourdakis from HADEA, who's going to tell us about research projects supporting the deployment and use of digital building permits and logbooks. So Eleftherios, I'll pass over to you. The floor is yours, and have a nice session, all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip, for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to this workshop. So my name is Eleftherios Bourdakis, and I'm a project advisor, and I have the pleasure to be monitoring the projects that will be presented later today to you. Please, the next slide. So first of all, some key facts of the construction sector. It's one important sector for the European Union, as it is responsible for 9% of the EU GDP. It provides 18 million of direct jobs, and the backbone of the sector is the SMEs, because 90% of it have less than 10 employees. The sector is facing some major challenges. For example, in several member states are facing a labor shortage. We see that there is a low degree of digitalization, industrialization in the sector. Technologies that have been adopted by other sectors decades ago are still struggling to find their way into the construction site. It's the most voluminous waste stream in the EU, and unfortunately, it's also the most labor accident-prone sector. And some of this issue with the motivation in order to come up with some topics in the first Horizon Europe work program. So the first two topics were related in addressing the low level of digitalization. And yes, please go. So in 2021, we had the topic on digital permits and compliance checks for buildings and infrastructure. And in 2022, we had the topic on to demonstrate the use of digital logbook for buildings. Next slide. So for the first topic about the digital logbook for buildings, the scope was to demonstrate and realize the potential benefits of using digital depositories of information that accompany buildings throughout their life cycle. And the expected outcomes were improved resource efficiency and decarbonization of buildings during their construction or renovation, improved linkages of existing databases, tools, and sources for digital building logbooks, improved usability of digital building logbooks through the user experience, new or improved tools for collection and update of relevant data, and to demonstrate other benefits of using digital building logbooks, such as safety and health in buildings and construction, cost effectiveness, efficiency gains in terms of times, enhanced climate resilience, etc. Next slide. So for the digital permits and compliance checks for buildings and infrastructure, three projects were financed, Check, Accord, and Digitech, for which we will hear in a few minutes. Next slide. And for this topic, the scope was to develop, connect, and align new technologies and digital tools for construction, including improved and automated methods of designing, building, and authorizing construction works. The expected outcomes was the efficiency and productivity gains in design and construction processes, fewer errors in planning, design, and construction processes, automated, faster, more accurate, and efficient permitting and compliance for construction work, and improved build quality and resource efficiency in construction in line with the aims of the new European Bauhaus. I forgot to mention that regarding the topic on digital logbooks, the process of signing the grant agreement is ongoing, so it's confidential. I cannot mention how many or which projects are to be financed, but hopefully they will have the chance to be presented in a future workshop once the projects are launched. Next slide. So with that, I would like to conclude from my side, and I would like to pass the floor to Francesca Nuardo that would present the project check.
Thank you, Eleftherios. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Francesca Nuardo. I work in the Open Geospatial Consortium, and I will present two kind of initiatives and projects. So I will wear two hats for a while. One is the European Network for Digital Building Permit, which is not a European project, but an informal initiative which has reached some importance maybe, or some relevance in order to from a operational point of view, and then I'll introduce CHECK, which is one of the projects that Eleftherios has just introduced. So next slide, please. I will start with the European Network for Digital Building Permit. It is an informal initiative, as I was mentioning. We had started at the beginning of 2020 with a couple of partners. We were all studying and experimenting on digital building permits, mainly with a bottom-up approach, and we could see that there were challenges, there were needs, especially for collaboration, and the collaboration that needed to be multidisciplinary, because we, for example, myself and my group, we were from geoinformation and we were exploring data integration. Other were from construction sectors, but were missing this part. And we also needed intersectoral collaboration. So we needed someone from research, someone from government, someone from company and industry. That was also very relevant. And therefore, we started collaborating. We started meeting with the mission of accelerating digital transformation and the goal of exchanging the results that we had, to join efforts to tackle the major challenges, to export also a bit, and do an outreach action in order to make people know what could be the relevance and the advantages of doing that. And in this way, we could build, first of all, a network that was that grew more and more, and now we are more or less 80 institutions, and more than 80 institutions from not only Europe, as you can see in the map. We have the support of some international organizations, so Building Smart, EuroSDR, the UBIM Task Group, and the OGC, which are covering part of the scope, but as you can see, we need to collaborate all together. And that's what the UNET for DBP is doing. So we are basically meeting more or less once per quarter to exchange materials and discuss common results and share different approaches to the same challenge. For example, we are also doing some, let's say, products. So, for example, we are publishing UNET for DBP talks, which are presentations on specific topics related to digital building permits. They are in YouTube, you can find them. We are also making some papers together, so different people from different institutions in the network. We are collaborating for common studies, and we are making papers out of it. We already have one on the state of play on digital building permits, and another one is in progress about the processes and what it could be a suitable digital process for digitalizing building permits. And we are also organizing some events where we can exchange more detailed information in a conference session. So we had one in March 2021, and we are planning one for next year, more or less. If it may be of interest for you, the next meeting will be on the 4th of November, and we'll have an open part, so everyone can participate, and the topic will be new projects on digital building permits. So we will probably share these new Horizon projects, but also other relevant projects which are about to start and will tackle similar challenges than ours. You can see the website, it's new, and yeah, you can find more information there or contact us anytime. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Now I change my hat and I introduce the CHECK project. So CHECK stands more or less for Change Toolkit for Digital Building Permit. I had coordinated the writing when I was in the TU Delft, in the 3D Geoinformation group, who is now coordinating the project with Jan-Tien Stoter. When conceiving this project, we started from the challenges and the issues that are currently hindering, from our experience, good digitalization of building permits. So we could see that there were traditional processes that are very hard to be changed within municipalities. We could see that it's hard to reach interoperability of data, a concrete and actual interoperability of data based on standards. There is a big gap with respect to skills and knowledge. So people need to know what they are using, what are the data that are necessary. They need digital skills, which are not always there in practice world. Then we have technology, so we had less challenges on technologies, but we needed some alignment and some more interoperability within technology. So it's not hard to find maybe a checking tool, but have it working well with standardized data, read them consistently, and also be part of an architecture that is able to have interchangeable and reusable components. That was one of the challenges. And then we have diversity of municipalities. So diversity is not only between countries, but also within the same country. We have town to town, maybe different requirements and different practices which are currently used, and so on. So from these needs, we developed the objectives of CHECK. So the need of developing and also supporting the adoption of a new process, develop some tools for interoperability, which will be standard-based, and together with standards, we'll make some best practices out of it so that everyone knows exactly how to use standards as well. Training and education will be a big part of it. The technology will be developed in a sense that it will be developed as checking tools, but also the interoperability of these will be cared a lot, and we want to use to build something which is based on microservices and open APIs, and we can really exchange parts to best meet the flexibility needs of municipality. So demonstrating scalability and flexibility is our final goal. And for doing this, we will provide this toolkit, and we'll use an iterative approach starting from requirements of municipalities, and we'll hopefully meet these goals of having a good outcomes from a digital building permit. So more efficient process, higher quality of checks, and so on. So, okay, next slide, please. Here you can see the consortium and more or less the value chain of the project. So the approach of the project, we will start from some pilots from some municipalities which are within the project exactly with this purpose. So to connect very strictly from to the use cases and to practice. We value it because we know it's also relevant to start from low levels in some cases. From that, we will find requirements and we develop them with respect to BIM and GIS data, care the standardization part, and then go through the development of analysis software that will be interoperable and should be able to be exchangeable and reusable and so on. Education and training will be also a big part of the project, because we need to fill this gap for anyone to use what we will provide. And finally, all of these will be the digital building permit toolkit that will be again demonstrated by the municipalities, not only our 4 municipalities, but you can see in yellow some other ones which are already in the advisory board, and probably we will try to build some Czech communities, so a community of practice that could follow the developments and help us defining the requirements, refining the requirements, giving some feedback on our developments, and so on. The timeline is more or less from now until in 2 years from now, there will be developments, and then we go to the demonstration phase. And you can find also more information about it in the website, or well, you will in the next time. Now it's just very basic information. Okay, next slide. And this is more or less the summary of the toolkit that will be provided. So we want to provide very specific tools and reference documents that municipalities and others from practice can really use to concretely go through the process of digitalization of building permits. And yeah, and the connection of BIM and 3D GIS will also be a key part of this project. And thank you. I think I have finished. Next slide. Where there are my contacts, and that's it. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Francesca. I would like now to pass the floor to Rita Lavika from VTT Technical Research Center of Finland. Rita, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eleftherios. So, hello everyone. I am Rita Lavika, a senior scientist from VTT, Technical Research Center of Finland. And as Eleftherios already introduced, I am the coordinator of Accord Horizon Europe project. It started about 2 months ago in September, and it's about digitalizing and automating building permit processes in Europe. And the project will run for 3 years, and we have approximately 5 million euro budget. Next one, please. So Accord supports this twin transition of green and digital initiatives in several ways. I pictured here some of those initiatives that you are probably already familiar with, like EU Green Deal goals and clean and circular economy, renovation, and those that were introduced in the beginning, but also this blue digital side, so Open Data Directive, European Data Strategy, Data Governance Act, and all those. And Accord will develop and integrate technical solutions for automating compliance checking of buildings. And we will also automate the checking of environmental regulations, for example, concerning carbon dioxide emissions, life cycle assessments, and circular economy. And this we will do by developing machine-readable rules. Next one, please. Here is a high-level maturity roadmap towards digitalizing and automating permitting and compliance processes. So if you're looking at the left side, you see that this is the current way of doing building permitting in many European countries. So it's quite manual. PDFs are exchanged, and Accord focuses on these 2 other ones, so digital and automation. So we will develop all our technologies and solutions based on open and neutral data exchange standards. And we will develop, for example, open application programming interfaces, also called APIs, that allow local building permitting authorities to choose their digital services without being in service lock-in. So that's the aim. Next one, please. Here is our vision. So Accord's vision is that digitalized building permit processes should be human-centered, transparent, and of course cost-effective for both the permit applicants, but also the authorities. So here you see 3 swim lanes. The first one is the applicant's swim lane. So and the low-level part is this authorities' swim lane. And this process should support the design of climate-neutral buildings and advance our sustainable built environment. And to enable this kind of a vision, there should be a single interface, user interface, that allows both permit applicants and authorities to connect this service. And in the background, there should be cloud-based microservices that are doing, based on BIM and other data sources, autonomously permitting and various kinds of checks, depending on the case. It can be compliance checks, it can be calculations, simulations, and all sorts of analyses that are required in designing and building. Yes, and this is all based on semantic interoperability. Semantics meaning that when you are transferring information between organizations, you won't lose the meaning behind that data, behind that information. Next one, please. So as said, we will develop semantic framework for European digital building permitting processes to drive rule formalization and integration of existing compliance tools as microservices. So there are already existing some services, and we will validate in our results in real-life construction projects all around Europe. Here you see that Finland and Estonia are focusing on environmental compliance. Germany is focusing on 3 use cases. One is land use permitting, then they have green building certification, and also industrialized timber housing. And then UK is focusing on structural integrity of steel modular house components. And finally, Spain is focusing on urban regulations. And our end goal is to provide suggestions for the EU-wide digital transformation of these permitting processes, but also to suggest business cases and business models for using open BIM and automation. Next one, please. And finally, here is our project consortium. So we are 21 organizations from all around Europe, from 11 European countries. We have 8 research organizations, 6 companies, and 7 associations, including a couple of cities and a ministry. And please feel free to contact me if you have any further questions. This is my presentation for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Now we'll pass the floor to listen to the last but not least project, DigiChecks. So we will hear from Mr. Ignacio Rincon from the FCC Construction. Ignacio, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for, first of all, thank you for the invitation. in the name of FCC and the consortium DigiCheck. My name is Ignacio Rincón. I'm working for FCC as responsible of digitalization in Northern Europe projects. And in DigiCheck, I'm technical coordinator, as FCC is the coordinator of the project. If you go to the next slide, please. Well, I think many things has been shared already. So many, I would like to do not overlap in the same topics. So I will try to explain in a simple way the idea of DigiCheck. The main goal of DigiCheck is create and demonstrate a digital framework that allows interoperability and communication between platforms based on technology and international initiative, facilitate the management construction permit, including compliance checks. The consortium, it's built by different companies. You can see in the screen, there are 13 different companies from Spain, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Austria, and UK. And we started project July 1st in Madrid. We have our kickoff meeting, and we have set up our four principles to be aligned in the development of the project. Which are these principles? Well, the first principle we have defined is we consider DigiCheck as a framework of a federated ecosystem rather than a centralized monolithic application. We are moving away from the concept of a centralized platform, and we are considering more ecosystem connecting the different dots of the industry. Our second principle is this framework allows a modular and a scalable approach where projects or third-party services can be included and swap easily. What that means is in two senses. First sense will be we are trying to do not think on the final goal. We know the final goal, but we have defined different level of maturity of the framework of DigiChecks, and we will build up this framework in different levels of complexity. Also, the modularity implies or help as the different processes in different countries, cities, municipalities are quite different and quite complex. You can build up your process depending on the complexity of your processes. The third principle is the framework uses a shared set of conceptual information model ontology. I think this is shared by the three projects. So it's to define a common ontology in the permits to be able to be used by the system, so a common language for all the permitting across the European Union. And the fourth principle is data is generated within the framework. It's formalized based on open standard or let's say international existing standard, so to have also a common language to be able to interact or interchange information between the different users. Could you go to the second slide, please? So how we will develop DigiChecks. We have defined 4 steps. The first step is standardized permit ontology, as I already mentioned. So it's a shared language for permitting that enable a framework to map the data from various sources. So moving away from centralization, we need to define this ontology for different platforms or different existing processes on the market. Step 2 will be to digitize this permit process based on each of the users or each of the authorities will be able to model their own process depending on the existing process. So we are not trying to modify the existing process to each of the country, each of the municipality. We're thinking more on to create something flexible enough that each of the authorities are able to model their own process in our system. And of course, if this process changes, you will be able to update this process. Third step will be build implementing rules. So based on this process already model, you are able to use one of the modules of the system that will apply or will allow to verify the rules defined by the authority in the system. And the fourth step, it will be the integration of previous step 1, 2, and 3 in a permit service API that will allow to integrate this DigiCheck on their existing processes through the API. In the right side of the slide, you can see a conceptual idea of the different layers. The gray one will be the inputs or the existing technology rules and standards. The blue part, it will be the proposal that we are proposing, that means the business layer and the application we are developing. And the orange bar will be the front end from the final user to access our system to be able to interact with the ecosystem. You can go to the next one. So that will be the key idea. We are developing the permit ontology and the shared language, the standard management, digitizing the permit process, building permit rules and permit service API. So this is the core system. And we understand the ecosystem as not as centralized, but yes, as the link between the different dots. This ecosystem, so the intention of DigiCheck is to be able to communicate or to send information from A to B or A to C or A to several, and to, in the process or in the way, to be able to have a check on the information. In the system will be available, in this case, 4 modules will be additional ones. One will be, well, the process modeling, as I already explained, based on the OMG standards. We will have also the module for a compliance check based on BRMS, Business Rules Management System. Geometry engine, we will be able to connect to a digital twin or even VR visualization. These are concepts that we are working into to implement it in future level of maturities. And of course, a connector to existing data sources as Cadastre or Inspire. If you can go to the next one, please. Well, and the structure of the framework, the concept of once this process has been modeled, each of the step of this process, how we understand, is the core structure of the framework consists of main components, as indicated in the figure. Okay, it's important to know that these different elements often have different origins, owners, or tools to manage. So one of the things we are doing is to map in the future project that we are demonstrating in the pilot project is to identify these requirements and subjects per actors in the process, actual ecosystem they are using, or different platforms, and the type of format they are using in these processes. The step of the verification, if at the moment is automated or manual, and how we will implement it. And the compliance check, of course, is the compensation of the process, is a validation, yes or no. And finally, in the next step, in the next slide, you can see the 3 pilot projects that we are going to demonstrate DigiChecks. We have one project in UK, Wales. It's an infrastructure project. It's a FCC construction as a main contractor. We have the second project in Spain that the main contractor is Realia. And we have a third project, pilot project is in Austria. It's developed and built by Cree Buildings. That it's a company who's doing it's a main contractor that is working on prefabrication industrialization projects. And I think the next one, I think it's done. Yes, and that's on. That's it. This is our webpage. Sorry. This is our webpage. You can contact us through Twitter or LinkedIn, our webpage, and these are the point of contacts. Our director, Elizabeth Rodriguez, myself, or Juan Ramon is the pilot coordinator, and Mark Moorman, I have included him because he's going to be part of the panel. He's from DC. Thank you very much.
Thank you for Ignacio for the nice presentation and all 3 speakers. So now we can move to the questions. We have 10 minutes. So far, I don't see any questions on the chat. So maybe I can ask the 3 speakers. First of all, if you can all 3 maybe turn on your cameras. So the first question would be what do you see the major benefit from digitalizing permits and compliance checks?
Shall I? Yeah, ladies first.
Okay, so I will start. Thank you. Well, first of all, it would allow to save some resources in terms of well, physical resources like paper and all of these, but especially it will allow to make the processes more efficient, the issuing more efficient by saving time, by allowing to automate some repetitive tasks, and therefore manual and human resources could be more dedicated to solve the controversial things and to check the most complex cases that would allow a higher quality of checks, and also some faster process and more transparent process, so that everyone can have some benefits. So industry, building industry, but also municipality would be able to check more new building designs and with a higher quality. So this is first advantage. Second advantage, I think that it would be the use and the development in future of more complex analysis and the possible introduction of new regulations, for example, dealing with I don't know, microclimate simulations and other kinds of analysis which are not allowed now but could be easily implemented in the near future with digital tools. And the third thing would be also to reuse the data which are involved in the process and make them relevant for feeding other data sets, such as, for example, the maps, cadastre, or construction-related data, or digital building logbooks, and so on. So this would be some of the advantages, first of all.
Yes, I totally agree with Francesca on all these. So as Francesca told, so there would be these short-term efficiency gains from these projects already, these Horizon projects, but in the long term, I think that we are designing buildings and using structured data, which we can really reuse for circular economy purposes, for renovation purposes, for everything that is in the life cycle later on. And this building permit phase is the phase where you need to start that process. So these projects are kind of creating those frameworks and those baselines and kind of bases for structured data. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Mark, you can go ahead.
Yes, one addition is permitting is, and we all sometimes forget it when we are doing design and construction and maintenance of buildings or infrastructures, but permitting is actually at its core of all of these items. So digitizing these part of the entire life cycle of a project is a key component to build on top of. Because if permitting requires some form of digital information to be delivered, that means the entire supply chain will need to adapt slowly but steadily towards this step. And I think with that, there will be a better alignment because construction is known for its fragmented way of working. That the alignment between the different stakeholders and actors gets a boost. And this might be a little bit future thinking or wishful thinking or hopeful thinking, but that we can slowly move away from a linear supply chain in construction and work much more towards an ecosystem in the ways we view buildings, collaborations, and the entire life cycle of a project. So yes, there are many benefits to adding permits to the digital.
To add one additional, I think the introduction, Mr. Burdakis mentioned that some technologies are already being used in other sectors, but not in construction. I think with projects like DigiChecks or Accord Check, it will help into the digitalization of the sector. So, and at least from our perspective, not changing the way of working, just trying to help to digitalize what they already have, I think will be a step forward or a way to push the entire system to a mindset more digitalized in the sector.
Thank you for your views. We have some interesting questions in the chat. I will start with an easy one specific to Rita. You mentioned in your presentation a ministry in Spain is involved in Accord. So the question is, which one is it part of the consortium?
Yeah, sorry if I said said so. So we definitely have one ministry, but it's from Estonia. So we have the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications from Estonia. So not a ministry from Spain.
Another question is, how do you plan to solve the current interoperability issues when using IFC formats?
Great question. Can I give an answer? We could do a complete seminar about this. But one of the things is IFC is already becoming an open standard. So we are dealing with the technology of today, but we're looking towards the future. So we'll stimulate that. But we're also moving beyond just IFC because there are more data sources. And this is one of the reasons why we are working on the semantic ontologies to deal with this interoperability, whether it's data residing in IFC or data residing in Excel or maybe PDF or wherever. We are working towards a singular language for permitting.
Then the next question would be, what kind of challenges you see in connecting BIM models to, in many cases, paper-based construction permit-related regulations?
I can answer that as well. Let me quickly read the question. This is the...
It's from Mika Costamo, yes.
Yeah, so what kind of challenges you see in connecting BIM models? Look, we take a look at them as different types of data sources. So BIM models are just one single part, and even those we can split into two parts of data, geometry and ones and zeros. And for the, we're coming from a very traditional paper-based business. We are not ignoring that. So these will not be some sort of trade-off. We will host them both because it will not go away, paper. Well, maybe paper will, but PDFs won't go away for a while. And we're applying different technologies to read those documents and transform it from unstructured into structured, machine-readable data.
Yes, so definitely there will be problems, and that's why actually Finland is now having the reform of the Land Use and Building Act. And if everything goes well, so starting from the beginning of 2024, we will have the building permit process, which is BIM based. So, and that comes from our law. So that's our solution to this problem. So slowly getting there.
Yeah, and in Czech that it's also something connecting a bit with the previous question. So we will start with the current regulations and data requirements. So we'll start from analysis of regulations and the extraction of data requirements very specifically from there. And we'll go to BIM and the GIS structures so that we will define them, trying to control by using especially the Open BIM tools as provided also by Building Smart and other associations, especially Building Smart, so MVDs, IDS, and so on. And we'll do it with a very pragmatic approach, so very also providing exporters and validators of data in a way that we can control the data. And from these, we expect to extract from BIM or other kinds of information which is involved the data and information which is needed for the paper-based regulations now. What we also expect is that as a next step in the future, probably like regulations will change a bit. If they have the opportunity to use 3D data, then probably they will be more 3D and more digital themselves. So using the new opportunities that will be available later.
Thank you for review. And then we have one final question before we move to the next session. And is intended to allow use of data present in these different aspects also for other purposes contained in the whole life cycle of a building, for example, demolition or reconstruction?
Well,
I think
yes,
go
definitely. This
Yes,
is the
of course.
purpose. Yes. A short answer. Yes. Yeah, sorry, Francesca, go on.
No, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, the same answer for me. So maybe not exactly now, but as an immediate next step, there will be data feeding these other cases.
Thank you for your presentations and for the responses to the questions. And we move to the next session, which is titled Earth Observation. And the first speaker is Miss Lucy Kennedy, the CEO of Spotted and AO Evangelist of the European Forum for Earth Observation. Lucy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've got 5 minutes each, is that correct? So I'm just going to do a little 2-minute introduction of myself, and then there's a video that the organisation have put together. So my name's Lucy Kennedy, and I wear 2 construction hats when I come to this meeting. One is I'm the CEO and co-founder of a satellite-based infrastructure monitoring service provider called Spotted. And the other is that I'm part of the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies, and I'm nominated as the EO Evangelist for Infrastructure, which means I'm here to promote the awareness of EO, support engagement and uptake, and also feedback to the EO community what the sector needs are, because there are often gaps when we talk about new technologies. So maybe you want to run the 3-minute video, which I might get embarrassed about because I think I'm speaking on it.
How can Earth observation help your sector? Infrastructure, such as networks of roads and railways, bridges, tunnels, and pipelines, form an important backbone for both industry and society. These structures enable commerce, mobility, economic growth, and employment, but constructing and maintaining them can be difficult.
The key challenge for infrastructures owners is to move from schedule-based maintenance, so we go and look at this once a year, to risk-based maintenance, where some areas you go and look more frequently because you've got changes, you've got issues, and other areas you go less frequently because nothing's going on. Across the different areas of the sector, if you look at construction, one of the major challenges there is that projects typically they take longer and they cost more money than originally anticipated. When it comes to the last one, which is climate resilience, of course, extreme weather events are increasing, but our reliability or our need for our infrastructure to operate reliably is only ever increasing. So those two things are really clashing, and infrastructure owners can look to EO to help them understand where they should best make investments.
Earth observation can help address these challenges. For existing infrastructure, Earth observation enables accurate remote asset monitoring that is timely, cost-efficient, and reduces the risks associated with hazardous work, improving maintenance operations especially for large and secluded areas. This monitoring can additionally help ensure built infrastructure's resilience, mitigating the risk of failure. Earth observation can also optimize planning and construction phases by providing key insights on site selection and data for permission processes, monitoring construction progress and potential damages, and by facilitating more environmentally friendly construction methods. FIRE, the industry-led forum for innovation and research in Earth observation, guides relevant Earth observation development efforts in Europe to effectively address the challenges faced by each of these key sectors. Learn more about Earth observation, its potential, and the solutions it's empowering in all FIRE-focused industries.
There you go. I don't need to say anything. It's absolutely perfect, but I'm looking forward to answering people's questions, and thank you for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you very much. That was an interesting video to watch. Now we will move to the next presentation. It's Pedro Rezende, founder and CEO of Our Watch Leads from Coimbra, Portugal. Pedro, the floor is yours.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be invited to this panel. First of all, just a brief introduction of our company. We are a startup, and we participate in the European Space Agency Business Incubation Center in Portugal, Coimbra. And this presentation is mainly how our company is bringing satellite technology and especially Earth observation together with BEAM and also AI. So our mission started to democratize the access to this technology. We developed an online store so that other professionals such as architects, engineers, builders, or developers can access this information. As Lucy Kennedy also mentioned, we are more focused in the upstream property acquisition and also the project conception stages, so that these professionals can access and do a site selection and also can inform their projects. But we are also developing mobile apps for the common citizens to also get in touch with this information, and web dashboards for municipal governments to provide a more optimized management of our cities. Next slide, please. So how we are bringing together tools that architects and engineers use, and also the Earth observation information. For example, in the Good to Build, we analyzed an intervention site in terms of vegetation indexes, also land subsidence, and water in the vegetation. And we describe the areas that are richer in terms of vegetation and also water in the vegetation, and also that have more subsidence as areas that are worse to build on. So by distinguishing these areas, we are protecting the areas that are richer in terms of vegetation, and we are proposing to artificialize the areas that are, let's say, best to build and best to be artificialized because they are poorer in terms of vegetation and also water in the soil. Next slide, please. This is basically our approach, and this shows several stages. The Good to Build, which is the diagnostics of the intervention site, and then we did a project design informed by these diagnostics, in which basically we propose a green neighborhood that protects these areas that are richer in terms of vegetation and also water, and we protect and also are artificialized around these areas, and these areas are given to the users as open spaces, as collective open spaces. Next slide, please. So this is a project that we did also in Lausanne, nearby Coimbra, and here we have machine learning and deep learning algorithms that helped us achieve a soil use classification. So this is a tool even for municipal governments that can be basically we can cover several square kilometers simultaneously, and it is a real mapping of what exists. And of course, all these images are provided weekly, so we can update this mapping almost real time. So next slide, please. This is just to show several studies that we did in similar places around the globe, in Mumbai, India, Santa Fe, Mexico, and Lake Michel in South Africa. And this also shows another potential of the satellite Earth observation, which is we can remotely assess several areas around the globe. Next slide, please. These are simple products. We can, depending on what we want to monitor, if it's a work site cleaning, if it's a type of work that is that can be observed with this view from above, it can be shown. Now, on the left, we have 10 meters per pixel Sentinel-2 satellite imagery, and on the right, 50 centimeters per pixel Airbus satellite imagery. Of course, we don't want to avoid the worksite visits, but as Lucy Kennedy also mentioned, in some visits can be avoided if we want to see the vegetation growth, if we want to see the worksite cleaning. This information can be used to some of these goals. Next slide, please. And basically, as it was already mentioned before, the climate is showing us that also it is necessary to bring an holistic view. And for example, here we have a mapping of floods, wildfires, and also the air, the best air to breathe in our cities. Next slide, please. This is the persistent scatter interferometer, which shows us the subsidence, the vertical displacement of soil, and also around an infrastructure. And this can show us, can allow us to monitor not only the existing infrastructure, but also the soil around the infrastructure. And again, covering several square kilometers in simultaneously, we can monitor several works of infrastructure, of buildings, that to monitor on site all these infrastructure. For example, working with Infraestruturas Portugal, they have a lot of infrastructure to monitor, so we can do this. In some cases, we can monitor 2 or 3 bridges with the same image. So next slide, please. And this is our work that we are trying to all these parameters that we can achieve from the land surface temperature, the vegetation indexes, water in the vegetation, the subsidence analysis. So we are merging this information with BIM formats and 3D formats, so that the professionals, architects, and engineers can all take this information and inform their projects, and basically to get let's say even a diagnosis with more detail, with more parameters than the traditional topographic and geotechnical surveys that provide. Next slide, please. And for example, this is another important work that we did here in the center of Portugal. A company that wanted to install an electric power station, so they were choosing between 3 sites. Here we just see one of the sites, but we did this analysis for the 3 sites, and we can inform what are the properties that are best to build on before site acquisition. So we basically, what we did was to diagnose in terms of flood risks, in terms of wildfires occurrence, and also in terms of topography and land subsidence. And then we even before they bought the land, we did an estimate using BIM technology on in each of these 3 sites what would mean to build on these sites the construction that they have. So this information, the cubic meters of the excavation, the containment walls, also the landfills and the accesses, can provide this before the land acquisition by merging all these technologies together in our analysis. So next slide, please. Just to end. Okay. So thank you very much again, and I welcome the questions when it's time.
Thank you, Pedro. And the next presentation is Satellite Solutions for the Construction Sector from Mr. Cornel Bogart, Project Officer from UREC. Cornel, yes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can hear me well. If you could just confirm that.
Yes, very well.
All right, perfect. So indeed, my name is Cornel Bogart. I'm working for UREC as a project officer. So if you go to the next slide, there you can find an overview of our members. So UREC, it's a non-profit association, and we represent space agencies and offices across Europe. So we're based at the HQ in Paris of the European Space Agency, but we also represent numerous national agencies. So if you go to the next slide, there you can find an overview of what we do. So in the first place, we are a facilitator. So we try to communicate about what is already on the market. So what is available in terms of satellite applications. But we try to connect to different space, so between space and non-space sectors. And so we are situated at you could say, the end of the space added value chain. So we really try to connect with the end users in many different sectors, which can be agriculture, maritime, cities. And then as a last pillar, you could say that we also come up with recommendations. So we try to be an advisor, and we also inform about potential obstacles that could limit the uptake of these satellite-based solutions and services. So we really try to divide or to disseminate the space-based solutions into the wider society. So next slide, please. And we work around different thematics, as I already mentioned. So here are just a few of them. So we have space for health, for rural, for culture, and so on. But today, since we are discussing applications in the construction sector, we mainly focus on our thematic area of space for cities. And again, there we try to highlight use cases of satellite-based services. And we try to make recommendations. So we really try to advise the end users, which can be public authorities and city administrations, on how they can better procure services. And we try to connect them with researchers and companies that provide these kind of satellite-based services. So next slide, please. And here I just want to mention a few use cases. So the first one here on the left, so you probably heard about the collapse which happened in 2018 of the Morandi Bridge. This actually opened a European-wide reflection on how we can update our monitoring tools, because satellite data can be very useful to monitor changes, as we saw in the presentation of Pedro, to detect millimeter precise ground movements and to generate deformation maps. And I think space here really shines out in monitoring large numbers over time. So really to automate these kind of processes, and it allows you to plan and prioritize inspections. So as also mentioned by Lucy, that you can just pinpoint the specific parts of infrastructure that need more maintenance than others. So that's where you can really find the benefit of remote sensing. And then here on the right, there was another case. So this was on the Port La Nouvelle, which is a French port located at the Mediterranean coast. And there were some works, so extension works there. And with all the dredging activities going on there was concern about the natural habitats around the port. And so there was a company providing forecasting using Earth observation with Sentinel-2 and 3 data to provide forecasting and monitoring of potential water turbidity plumes nearby the works to protect these areas. So next slide, please. Then 2 more use cases. So here on the left, there was one in Vienna. So there, a company came up with a heat vulnerability map. So really to help with the urban heat island effect, because cities, they tend to heat up quite a lot, especially during summer and also due to climate change. And this kind of map, it allows you, or it allows the city administrations to better plan the cities, so where to place water bodies, where to invest in green spaces, and it also allows you to maybe relocate communities that are more prone to these to heat waves, or it's just a great tool to better plan the city. And on the right, there is a similar case. This one was in Malta at the Grand Harbor, because there it's a very densely populated area, and there's a lot of concern about constructions there. So this satellite map, it allowed local communities and local residents to draw their points of interest and to really safeguard open spaces and green spaces. So you can see that satellite data can be used in many ways. Of course, I just want to highlight just these few use cases, but on the bottom of this slide you can find more links to the website of Eurizi, where we have a collection of many more use cases. But I think this gives already a good overview. And so if you go to the next slide, I also would like to highlight this series of webinars that you are organizing together with Nereus, which is the network of European regions using space technologies. And together with them, we organized this series of webinars, which follows the structure of the EU directive, or better, the proposed EU directive on the resilience of critical entities. And we try to focus on different sectors. So really to support member states in their efforts to boost the resilience of critical entities against natural or man-made hazards. And so there again, space has a lot to offer in many different sectors. So if you just go to the next slide, there you can find our next session that will take place next week, and it will focus on energy and transport. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the Eurizi website and register, or just scan here this QR code. So with that, I think next slide will be the last one. So yeah. So thank you very much, and in case you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you all for your presentations. Similar to the previous session, the audience is more than welcome to post their questions to the chat. I will start with a question. I would like to ask you, how does Europe compare with other third countries when it comes to Earth observation? Maybe Lucy can go first.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Europe is very fortunate both to have a very active sector in terms of data providers, so people collecting and disseminating satellite data, and also what's known in the sector as downstream service providers, so people like Spotted and OWL that are developing services and not just giving imagery, but really giving services and insights to end users. And we have a really healthy and growing ecosystem. It might be healthy and too growing. So if you're really someone looking for services, it might look quite confusing. So in that sense, I would say we're probably ahead of other parts of the world, and I expect to see some sort of streamlining in the coming years as smaller companies come together, maybe as partnerships or mergers and acquisitions. But yeah, Europe is a great place to look for these kind of services and specific services for specific sectors as well, in my view. But maybe Pedro and Conal have a different view.
No, I totally agree. Not only we use imagery from the Sentinels from the Copernicus, also the Copernicus monitoring system, and we have a lot of private suppliers that are Europe-based, and as Lucy was also mentioning, there are a lot of companies, from micro companies to small, medium businesses, appearing using this satellite data and treating this data. So I believe that the technology will continue to be democratized, and if the search continues to grow, it's like in every technological sector. The images will get cheaper, the precision will get better, the resolution will get better. So I think we are looking at a very good future ahead, and I believe that Europe is ahead in the geo location. The Galileo system is the most advanced system, I would say, together with EGNOS of GNSS. And the Sentinels, not only in terms of the revisit times of the satellites, but also in terms of the data they provide. We are I would say we are very, very good here. Maybe Cornel has something to say as well.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I think I mean, in Europe we have Copernicus, and we are, I think, the global leader in terms of Earth observation data as a provider. And I think that what Europe does really well is that the European Space Program, it focuses a lot on applications for our own planet, and especially with Earth observation, you have a lot of applications that can benefit in different sectors. And with USPA, these are also brought under one roof. So I think there's a lot of synergies indeed between Earth observation, but also satellite communications and positioning services. And so exploiting these synergies, yeah, it can just benefit all the different sectors. So I think that's in Europe, that's something that we have in place, and it's quite unique. So I think that's something that we really do well against, I mean, comparison with other parts of the world. And I think it's also it's not only the public sector, but also private companies. More and more we see that there are a lot of companies investing in remote sensing. So we have a thriving sector in that as well. So in Europe, so it's a combination of private and public efforts that makes it work, I think, in Europe. So.
I'm happy to hear that there is a consensus that Europe is doing great on that field. So we have a question from the audience. Would this EU data be precise enough also for the purpose of public land registries cadastres? In extremis, the absolutely precise situation of a plot, which a geometer could define on the ground? Lucy?
Yes. Okay. So the answer is yes and no on that one. So in the sense that depending on the resolution of the satellite imagery, that will determine and how many, ground control points and stuff you have, that will control the accuracy of, where the satellite image is, how it matches the exact and precise location on the Earth. And this is happening from sort of 600 kilometers up in space. And we're down to, 1 to 2 meters now with high resolution satellite imagery. So from that point of view, that might be a criticism. No, it's a yes, because of course, if you have a satellite image and you determine, the area of your plot of land, yes, that might be shifted 1 meter one way, but that will be very, very accurate, your measurements that you make relative, between point A and point be. I think one thing we have to get over a little bit with the use of EO is not to compare it to our existing terrestrial based tools in terms of accuracy and resolution. It is a brilliant tool for operating at scale and fully remotely, and we may have to get a little bit used to subtle differences in the accuracies and that we are used to.
Thank you, Lucy. Pedro, would you like to comment?
Just to add, but to reinforce what was said, it really depends on the objective. If the objective is, for example, to update a municipal plan of the built environment, yes, because there we are looking at the metric detail, and even if there is a small margin of error of 1 meter, the results are good because they can be updated weekly, and to map the built environment, it's good. If we want to look at the centimetric detail, it's different. It's Earth observation, and it's not the product to look at if we want the detail of centimeters or millimeters. So it really depends on what we want to solve.
Maybe just one more thing to add. I think just a general comment that EO, it's often just a part of the puzzle. So I mean, it's just it's one piece, and it's not the holy grail, or I mean the final solution. So it's just one part, and I think it's very effective, but it should also be used as a complementary tool. So there are, of course, still the other tools as well, so that are maybe more precise, or that can be used in other situations as well. So
thank you all. So we have run out of time. Thank you for your nice presentations and for your answers to the questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
And if I'm not mistaken, now we have a 5-minute break, right?
Yes, exactly. Now we have a 5-minute break. So thank you all for joining us along. I think there were, quite some good discussions already. And maybe if there's more questions in the chat, feel free to post them, and then maybe panelists can still follow up. But we have 5-minute break, so we'll meet again at, well, let's say, at 15:28. We will continue. So a bit of a short break to get a coffee, to get up, and then we'll continue with the next panel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It's 15:28 now. I know it's a bit of a weird timing, but otherwise we lose too much time if we would have waited until 15:30 because we're already a few minutes late. So I think hope everyone managed to get a fresh cup of coffee or another drink, and I think we can continue now. So yeah, we can move to the next slide, and then Eleftherios, back to you with, for the next panel.
So we are moving to panel number 3, drones, 3D scanning, and other ways to collect data from buildings. And we are going to have 2 presentations. The first one is from Mr. Gerard Marsh, manager of iTwin Context, Bentley Systems. Gerard, the floor is yours.
You're muted, Gerard.
Thank you very much for that. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So my name's Gerard Marsh. I work for Bentley Systems, and today I just want to obviously introduce Bentley Systems as the company, but also talk a little bit on how what we call reality modeling can be used within construction. Next slide, please. So for anyone who's not aware, Bentley Systems is a global company. Its mission is to provide innovative applications and services for professionals who design, build, and operate the world's infrastructure. We are a software company, and our main mission is that of to provide software for all things infrastructure related. And as well as having 4,500 colleagues located across the globe in 186 different countries, we obviously have a very large base in Europe, and our main European headquarters is actually out of Dublin as well. So we do a lot of our work is mainly European based. And as said before, it's all things infrastructure. So it's anything from capture to design to management to also project management. Next slide, please. So what is reality modeling? So reality modeling is a word obviously that we pass around a lot, and we call it reality data a lot as well. And the key component, what we say of a digital twin these days, and I understand that obviously people talk a lot about digital twins at the moment and what is a digital twin, but I think the base of a digital twin is that time-based reality data. So it's a great way to give you a base of what is already existing today and where we are at. And you know, as we get to a point now where things like drones, mobile mapping systems, in terms of handheld mobile mapping systems or mobile mapping systems attached to cars in terms of scanning, they're becoming a lot more accessible. So it's becoming a lot more common to see units inside of companies that have their own drone divisions, that have their own surveying divisions, their own scanning divisions. And this reality data now is becoming a lot more common within your projects. And when we talk about reality data, that can be anything from point clouds to reality meshes, or to just 360 panoramic images, or even just images from the drone itself. So there's many different types of reality data. It's very much fast growing industry, I believe, and it's always, you know, trying to capture data today, what is already existing, and trying to get the highest precision possible with that data. Next slide, please. So we've kind of gone over what the reality modeling is as an idea, but how does it help construction? So where does reality modeling assist with construction? Where does this capturing of data, whether it be point cloud data, reality mesh data, or image data, actually help construction? Well, the first sort of piece we talk about here is just that global accurate perspective of the job site. So what reality data is providing you is providing you precise data, precise in terms of, you know, relative accuracy as in point to point. It's also giving you that global accuracy as well. It's giving you an understanding of your area globally where you stand. It's a great way for you to monitor and evaluate the progress and performance of a given job versus design as well. So with reality data and when again point clouds or reality meshes, it's very easy to actually capture the as built. What is there right now? How does that correlate to the original design? In terms of more in the construction day to day as well, that reality data, you know, we can take a drone, we can capture our site very quickly, or we can take some pictures with a handheld phone, and we can do cut and fill calculations. So very much when working with land, there's obviously a lot of removal of spoil and things like that. When we are working in construction, very quickly reality data can help us do cut and fill quantities. It can improve the safety as well on site, you know, less boots on site, less time on site. The more we get towards autonomous drones and things along them lines, it makes it much easier for us to capture, you know, the as existing, what is there today, what does it look like, what kind of stage are we at. And it really does lower the cost of inspection surveys and as-built surveys. So, you know, especially with a reality mesh, you are getting a high resolution picture of your site that you can easily look at and see how that fits in with your design. Next slide, please. And this is, I'm hoping this video is running smoothly. This is just an idea here of just showing some of these points that I've just spoken about previously. We can see here how very quickly and easily, you know, we can run a scheduled flight once a week, once a month, every couple of days if we want to, and very quickly we can get an idea with progress of how our site's moving along. We can put time dates against that. We can work out volumes from this data. As you can see here, we can work out our cut and fill volumes wherever possible, but we can also see, you know, where we are versus as designed versus as built as well. Does this look like it's correct? Does this follow the designs that have been handed over or not? Next slide, please. And another really big project, and I wanted to just show this one because I think it just kind of helps give a bit more of, you know, rather than me coming from a software company and talking about how I think reality data can really help. This is where it's a live project that we just wanted to show, and we'll show this, and I'm afraid it's not obviously European. We do have lots of European projects, but this was Gamuda, and this was a 52.2 kilometer railway line through a dense urban centre of Kuala Lumpur. Lots of different construction sites were going on at the same time. You know, we have the largest construction site at 17,000 square meters. And what they want to do was see how they could monitor very quickly how their construction's going in different ways, but also how do they keep track of all them different sites, and how do they get some visual, you know, a visual idea of where they are today. So what they did is they went out, they got a drone team together with their civil team, they picked up some UAVs, they processed all of this data constantly into reality meshes. And what this allowed them to do was actually come with this outcome here of, you know, they reckon they saved 30 to 50 times the amount of time they would have done with traditional surveys during the construction period. They could also combine all this data with their BIM models, so they could really see that idea of, okay, this is where the BIM model, our design model is saying where we should be today. This is where the reality model is saying we actually are. And they saved over 1,000 resource hours just through all these different workflows using that reality data and using that as built captured data along with their construction. Next slide, please. And here it is again, just a very, very quick overview, just to show some of the very similar things that we saw before. I really like this, how great it's to see where obviously as each month goes by, how much closer they were getting to the actual point they needed to in their excavations. And then here, the great thing to show is, you know, with these drone flights and the accuracy they can get relatively, this is, you know, it's not going to give you millimeter accuracy, but it gives them the accuracy that they need to help with their cut and fill volumes, to check that things are correct, what they think it should be. And very finally here, what they actually found out from here is this was part of a building that was next to the excavations. And they found that the drawings they had from what they thought was the as-built from when the building was previously built, constructed, was actually different to what was the reality. And they could very quickly overlay that data on top of each other and work out where the issues were and then work on top of that. And I believe that's it. I'm sorry, I think I made a bit over 5 minutes, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerard. And now we are moving to the second presentation from Mr. Marco Herbst. Will ever come. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
So, thank you. Yep, Marco Herbst. I'm the CEO of Evercam. We are a visualization and collaboration platform. So it's no surprise a lot of what you'll see with Evercam will be a little bit familiar to what Jared presented. We're actually a partner company of Bentley and are using some of the iTwin engine within Evercam. So the problems we're here to solve are these familiar productivity issues within construction, disputes, delays, rework. Those headlines taken from the newspaper are familiar, I think, to all of us at this stage. Each country has its own favorite project that tends to make the headlines in the wrong way. And again, that's what we're here to try and stop. We do that by bringing in all of the various reality capture opportunities. So all of the main types of cameras you'll find: drone, 360, mobile phone, so on. Combining that with the schedule, the planned, ideally 4D models, and turning that into these actionable insights for the various different personas on the construction site. So, for example, if our site manager, our scheduler, is going to be interested here in our gate report, I'll show you that as we go through a product demo. It might be the BIM schedule, comparing that BIM schedule to where we actually are, or health and safety manager might be interested in an incident on site. But they all come under the wing of Evercam Reality Capture Platform. We're also delivering now globally with over 100 people projects for the largest construction companies and project owners around the world. And the bit that we're really interested in is this gap between what's actually happening on site and what should be happening on site, and closing that gap, both in the project itself, but also increasingly as we work with these larger global project owners, as they're doing multiple projects one after another or in different parts of the world, that they're learning from one project and they're able to apply those learnings on other projects. So I'll jump here to show you this in real life. Here we are looking at a project in Dublin, not far from where I'm sitting today, and we can see different views on the site. And I can jump into one of those camera views, and you see what I'm talking about here with pretty good high resolution images. This is recording full video all the time from a fixed position camera. So what Evercam then has is a whole suite of tools that you wouldn't expect to find in a normal camera system, things like very, very accurate measuring. If I'm approving an invoice and checking subcontractors' work, I might be planning a new cable run or so on. Here I'm on the first floor. I want to see the structural supports underneath, and I've got tools like the X-ray tool, again, that you wouldn't find in a normal camera system, but it allows me to see the structural supports in the context of where the building is today. Just these are the powerful ability to see what's going on, communicate with my team. It's the key to all good project management, and I'm integrating here with whatever tools are being used on site. Okay. Here you can see where the camera came in initially, where we are today, and it's the full video story the whole way through for every event captured on site. But then also, and this is where you see now the benefit of bringing in the iTwin type tools, where are we headed and where are we today compared to where we should be. Evercam brings this as a complete package to the customer, sort of a one-stop shop. I'm going to quickly jump to another project. It's coming towards the end, DB Schenker. What I like about this one here, you can see how we were there from the very beginning of building this roadway. And in terms of knowing where a project is at any moment in time, if the only thing you know is the amount of soil that has been removed or concrete delivered, well, you know an awful lot about that project. And that's where Evercam's AI turns it into actionable data. So our algorithms are turning this into every single delivery, time it arrived, time it left, and really crucially also understanding what these vehicles are. So I believe we're by far the most advanced company in the world at being able to identify here. For example, I'll just look at the concrete deliveries, everyone in, everyone out, and then subdividing it here, you can see by company. On the same, oops, excuse me, I'll refresh that. On the same site, I'm going to show you bringing in the drone. Everything I've shown you so far is the fixed position cameras. But again, like Jared said, just immensely useful. My ability to go in here and see where we're putting in these electric car parks, I want to just check, this is from the 5th of October, and I can check today, show me the live camera feed, and hopefully, let's see, have they made progress there? Not yet. That looks like an old rubbish bin, and they are not yet in place. Do you see how I'm seamlessly jumping from one to another? That's my iTwin stuff, and I'll finally here the last piece of the puzzle, internal. Right, so it's the same idea, these beautiful high resolution images, 360 inside a building. So everything that relates to reality capture under one hood, and all with this measuring and relating it to the BIM model using tools like iTwin. That's the iTwin model there loading up. You can see the power of having that all under one roof. And again, jumping back, say here to the fixed position camera. Good. I think that's probably my 5 minutes. I'll hand back.
Thank you very much, Marco. And with the finish of the second presentation, I would like to ask the audience to post their questions in the chat. I would like to start with a question. If we combine, let's say, this the data you extracted on with the first part, about the permits, who do you think should the owner of the data be? Gerard, you are muted.
Apologies again. Owner of the data is a really good question. I think it's something that's quite common for us, and especially working for a global company, is who actually owns the data. So when that data is captured and it is processed, who is the owner? Is it the survey company? Is it the owner of the actual assets themselves? And I really think we are all about openness as well. So I think although this data has always been captured and it's owned by the owner operator, I do think there's a nice sort of piece about how data should be shared as well and be kind of open source where possible. There's no reason why in certain stages when we are capturing large scale reality capture of cities and so on, that data should be open enough for others to use it as well and be able to assist with their construction workflows.
Thank you. And Marco, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'd support what Jared says there. What we have, Jared said that ultimately it's the project owner. A lot of the time we're selling those to the main contractor. They really care about that construction process. But ultimately, yes, the beneficiary of a project delivered on time and on budget is the project owner. And the types of projects where we've had most success are the ones where the owner and the contractor are working very collaboratively. So there's these shared risk type projects, which generally are the more complicated ones, mission critical. So looking at things like data centers or the companies like Intel Semiconductor production, Shell building oil infrastructure around the world. That Shell effectively is the construction company in that case, but they're working very, very tightly with their main contractor. And there's a very strong incentive for information sharing because they can't totally de-risk the project to like insurance and legals. They have to work collaboratively. So that's what we really like, where there's this collaboration and therefore ultimately shared ownership of the data.
Thank you. And then you both showed some very interesting applications and projects that you have worked on. I would like to ask you, what are the challenges or barriers for the collection of this data? Gerard, you want to start?
I think the barriers at the moment, I guess, is people just seeing the technology, seeing the advancements, and having the belief that it brings especially when it comes to us and reality meshes, that people actually believe that they are accurate enough and they are giving them the correct data that they need for their project. I would say that's still a barrier that we see. You know, people still struggle sometimes to, you know how we can just take simple images from mobile phones, from drones, and then actually turn these into an accurate reality mesh and actually be overlaid with a BIM model and actually give you an understanding of where your construction is in terms of your, your as designed versus your as built. So I think that's one of your main barriers. And then I think your other barrier then as well is, especially when it does come to drones, is the use of drones in terms of line of sight. So, at the moment there's a lot of contracts in place where you have to have a line of sight for your drones. When your drone is flying, you have to be able to see it. So you still can't have that that ability just to let your drone go and fly your site autonomously. I still think that's a barrier there. We look to the future, and it'd be nice to see how, especially for construction monitoring, if you could have it that your drone is autonomously takes off, it captures your site, it comes back, it processes, it updates your model weekly without the intervention of someone there having to be, actually watching that happening and making sure nothing's going wrong. I really think that's the kind of barrier at the moment. And when we can kind of get past that barrier, I really see it being taken on much more for construction monitoring, that ability just to capture that site very quickly and very easily.
Thank you, Gerard. And Marco, your view on the question?
Yeah, I'd be a little jealous of Bentley there in that, because they are really purely a software company. Evercam is much more involved in the actual full delivery of the service. So, a construction site, it's an ever-changing, pretty hostile, messy environment. So we get very involved in like the practical issues of getting those cameras online, having power regularly supplied to them, the sort of like day-to-day damage and events and reactions that you have to get involved in. So that's part of it. The technology is getting better and better all the time. It's just working better. Solar, battery, autonomous collection, things like that. Trust is a real issue as well. We described there those collaborative projects, but they are still the minority. That the average subcontractor, contractor, when they see cameras going in, especially when they're being put in by the owner, they're generally not delighted, is the first reaction. And I think we're witnessing now that transition where it's accepted that if we all have a single source of truth, some of the least productive arguments are taken off the table, and we can focus on the better, more the better side of construction, should we say, the more collaborative work that we do together.
One question we got from the audience. Does the owner-operator of such drones would have any intellectual property rights on the picture films they produce? Gerard, if you want to comment.
I'm just going to reread that again. Sorry. I guess not. I guess this is generally when it comes to the owner operator of the drones, they are offering a service to whoever their client is. So in terms of intellectual property rights, I assume they would pass them on to the client. I know from Bentley, even though we're not a services side or a software side, we obviously do deal a lot with clients, and especially when it comes to construction, or should I say users, where intellectual property is very high up for them. So, to the point where they don't even want any kind of data sharing. If we ever assist them with data and things like that, they obviously want to own that and make sure that it's not being passed around. So I guess in the same as that question there, the service provider will be passing on the rights to whoever that client is for delivery.
Marco, you want to comment?
I give much the same answer. It's a similar situation for ourselves. So we would be a data processor, and the data controller, which is really your data owner, is the paying client, almost always.
Very clear. Thank you very much for your interesting presentations and for answering the questions. We are now going to move to the final panel, bringing innovation to the market, discussing solutions, barriers, and support. And the first presentation is from colleague Carmen Iannosi from DG Connect, who's going to talk about the innovation radar. Carmen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. This is a very specific webinar, and I think we from DG Connect, working with the Innovation Radar, we can bring something even in these very specific situations. So actually, what is the Innovation Radar? The reason we've set up the Innovation Radar is to indeed bring all the amazing innovations that come out of European projects as a source of deal flow. So for the investors to see all the great things that come out of our projects, which are worth investing in and worth pursuing. Next slide, please. So as most of you do know, Horizon Europe has nearly 100 billion euros of money invested in great projects that we think are worth pursuing because they're there to enhance people and consumers' lifestyle. So it is the world's largest public funded research innovation program, which means that great things come out of here. Next slide, please. What does EU funding mean? It means, compared to private funding, it means that we de-risk technology. It means that our capital, so the European money, is much more patient. It allows for more risky research because we do not expect the money back in 5 or 10 years, and also cleaner cap tables. Next, I can see there's some comments already coming in. Next slide. Thank you very much. So what we're trying to do in the European Commission and through the Innovation Radar, like I said, there's a lot of money coming in these projects, and there's an amazing stuff coming out of these projects. But for years, all these innovations have just gone unnoticed and been shelved, and more money was being poured into new projects. So what we want is make sure that we identify these investment opportunities and these amazing innovations and innovators that we want to pour money into privately also. So this portfolio actually keeps growing every month. So what we've done actually is, with the help of some experts, so technology experts, but also market innovation experts, we make sure to highlight all the innovations that have a market creation potential. So the ones that are going to create a new market or are going to broaden the market that they're already working in. And also we also highlight how mature the market is for these innovations. So we have identified and we've created actually indicator system to mark these innovations that come out of the Innovation Radar. Next slide, please. So the innovations with the disruptive potential. There's a couple of questions. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of the detail of the questionnaire, but the whole idea is, with the help of innovation experts and market experts, we actually see how disruptive the potential of the innovation is. And what we've seen, and this is the first time we've done this in the Commission, to be honest, what we've seen is that actually there's 35%, so it's a very high number of EU fund innovation. They show a disruptive potential. Disruptive or non-disruptive is not good or bad. It's important. It's just something worth highlighting. If it's disruptive, it probably means that it will create a new market or it will broaden the market. It doesn't mean that the low disruptive innovations are not worth pursuing, but it's just important for investors to know where they place themselves when they're looking at an innovation itself. So we've highlighted the five categories that we've decided upon, from low to very, very high disruptive potential. Next slide, please. The innoradar.eu is the public-facing interface where you can go and look for all these. You can search by you see the first part is the innovations. So we've got, actually for the moment now, we're nearly at 9,000 innovations. You can search by maturity, and you can search by market needs. So this is very important. This is something that for the innovators specifically, they highlight for us what they think their needs are. It could be intellectual property, legal advice, it could be internationalization, it could be business plan, it could be the creation of a team around the innovation, and it could be money, of course. And then you've got also, like I was mentioning before, the market creation potential. So as you can see, there's a lot of innovation out there. There's some with very high, but I would encourage the investors to not limit themselves to very high or high, depending on what it is that they want to invest in. So it is worth actually searching in different ways, by maturity, by innovation topic, and really play with a website to see what it is that you're looking for. Next slide, please. When I was saying that we've got fresh data, so every month we add around 200 new innovations, which means that we're more than 10,000 innovations by the end of this year. And deal flow, as you see, is actually, it's a support action that we have that we're working with, who is taking all these innovations and putting them and merging them with data from another company called Deal Room, where you can see how much the startups or the companies that we work with, they have raised, if they've raised any money, who have they raised money from, what it is that they're, what is their innovation, what is it that they really concentrate on when they're talking about innovation, what fields do they think they might apply their innovation to. So there's a lot of very interesting information that Deal Flow puts together from the Innovation Radar website with the Deal Room website. Next slide, please. So the go-to-market support, I think this is something, as I understood in this webinar, there's a number of innovators and researchers that are present here. It's really important in these questionnaire of the Innovation Radar to say what the go-to-market support is that you think you might need. And I think that one of the biggest actually added values of these questionnaires, of these conversations between the innovators and the markets and innovation experts, is actually talking together about what it is that they think they might need to go to the next step. So from the lab to the market, where are they in their journey, and what is the next thing that they might need in order to scale their product and their company? And we, of course, I mean, some of the first things we always heard is money, and of course everybody needs money, but what they realized actually it's much more complex, and sometimes it's not just the money. Actually what they needed, it was a team around them, was, like I was saying, in legal help. So these conversations during the Innovation Radar questionnaire reviews may highlight actually or broaden the scope and the perspective of what it is that they might need to get to the market. Deal flow, like I was saying, it helps us, is one of the ways in which we help and we support the innovators and innovations to get to the market. And deal flow is really greatly placed actually because they do merge data that they're very interesting to investors. So they take our data and put it together with this other data on intellectual property, other intellectual property that exists in the fields that innovators work in. They put in data on the VCs or any corporate VCs or any investors that might already be interested in the innovations that are out there. So it's a great way for them to bridge, actually, to help us bridge the innovations with the market. Next, so this is what we're trying to do. The Innovation Radar, the point of our work is indeed to enrich the deal flow for the investors with market-ready and disruptive innovators. Next slide. So the tools and platforms, you can, sorry, my kids have just arrived at home. So the tools and platforms, where you can find all this information is on the dealflow.eu and on the Innovation Radar. I would encourage everyone to look at both because there's a lot of very interesting information out there. I'm open to answer any more questions. I don't want to take more of your time now, but if anybody has any specific question about what it is that the Innovation Radar does and the Deal Flow does, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. You did an interesting presentation. And we will move to the last presentation for today from Stefan Richardson, who will present bringing innovation in the construction value chain to market from the Build for People public-private partnership. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I feel like I need to start by saying, wow, I mean, how cool is some of this stuff that we've heard about this afternoon? I love joining these meetings to learn and see all the amazing things going on. And I certainly think after this presentation, I'm going to be reaching out to you, Carmen, to find out a bit more about how what we're doing in Build for People could connect with what you've just presented. Really cool to hear that. So Built for People and bringing innovation to the construction value market chain. I'm going to start first of all by asking the question of, why is it difficult to bring innovation? What are the barriers? And then look at how the Built for People partnership and what we're doing in Built for People is hopefully going to address some of that. I should first of all say I need to apologize for not citing a source for this image. This is an image from McKinsey, so I will request that the organizers allow me to put a citation on here before the slides go out. I've highlighted the construction sector here. I mean, we've been hearing so much about digitization. It's kind of hard to imagine, having heard of all these great stories and case studies, that digitization must be great, but actually it's incredibly low in the sector. You can see it's second only to agriculture and hunting. No disrespect to those industries. But you can see across all categories here, so across assets, across usage, across labor, digitization is really low. Next slide, please. So, one back, we jumped ahead too far, there we go. So linked to that, so we've got an issue around low digitization. We've also got an issue around R&D spending. Construction companies, according to McKinsey, this is a slightly old statistic, I think from 2 or 3 years ago. I believe it's gone up slightly, but not significantly. Construction companies spend way less on R&D than other sectors, so auto and aerospace sectors here with 3.5% and 4.5% respectively. The construction sector spends less than 1% of its revenues. So that's another issue, another barrier. Now we can go to the next slide. This is, I think, really, really key. This is a stat from our friends at EBC. The construction sector is hugely fragmented and dominated by micro enterprises, 94% of the market, and micro and SMEs making up 99.9% of the market. So there are very, very few big players with big pockets, and that also is one of the reasons why R&D spending is so low. Next slide, please. So how is Built for People trying to address this? And I should say briefly, Built for People is a public-private partnership under Horizon. It's a collaboration between the European Commission, obviously, and 2 associations. You've edited my slide format here, so you can't see the logos. Apologies for that. This should have a nice co-funded by the European Union logo on it. So I just want to release myself from liability for not having put that logo on the slide. It was on it before it was stitched into this slide deck. And it also had our logo as well, Green Building Council, and ECTP logo as the other partner. So it's a tripartite partnership, 2 associations representing the private sector and obviously the Commission. And within Horizon, it sits within Cluster 5, if you're familiar with the structure. But I wanted to just sort of pick out a few points in terms of what Built for People is trying to do. So you can see here the sort of 3 general objectives. It's about sustainability. It's about holistic innovation. It's about decarbonisation. It's about behaviour change and health and well-being. Lots of nice sustainability buzzwords in those objectives there. But if you look at the specific objectives, you see that there's a real focus on on this collaboration and fostering interactions between different parts of the value chain. So whether it's talking about breaking down silos, increasing integration, bringing players together, economies of scale, all of these elements around connecting different parts of the value chain. So that's one of the things that as a partnership we want to do, and that the money, the budget within the partnership, which is about 380 million from the Commission side, from the EU side, and that matched with around a sort of similar amount, so around 400 million or so expected from the private side. That's what we want this money to achieve through the projects. Next slide, please. And linked to that, so you've got all of this great R&D, R&I happening through the projects that Built for People will channel money into. But we recognise that actually often that's not enough. And really interesting to hear the previous presentation from DG Connect. Some great stuff going on there. And as I say, I'll be following up to find out more. Within Built for People, we also recognise that there's a need, once projects hit the end of their Horizon grant period, there's really a need to support them further. And this is what I want to focus on in the last couple of minutes, is our efforts to bridge that gap from public support through to really sort of hitting the market with innovation and scaling it. And we have, within the Built for People partnership, we have a proposal. We agreed right from the beginning we would work to set up a network of innovation clusters. There are innovation clusters already. We know they exist. We know some of them. I'm sure there's more that we can go and find. Our aim is not necessarily to launch new clusters, but to foster or facilitate the formation of a network that supports those clusters to interact better, but also enables Horizon projects, so Built for People funded Horizon projects, to connect into this network and give them an opportunity to as if you like, a route to market. And we have a project, an EU-funded project now to support the setup of this Innovation Cluster Network. It's called Nebula. As I'm sure you know, every EU project has to have a creative acronym. So Nebula is New European Bauhaus Unlocked Through Built for People Endorsed Local Actions. And the Bauhaus is an important element of the Built for People sort of synergies with what's happening in Europe. Built for People, people centricity, very much aligned with the objectives of the new European Bauhaus. And with these innovation clusters and with this Nebula project, we want to really sort of support the route to market for those innovations. So Nebula is going to do a few things. We're going to create and nurture this network. We are going to work on supporting those innovation clusters with a finance help desk. We're going to put in place support around and guidance around different business models. We're going to work on research and innovation support that is complementary to what the innovation clusters are doing. We're going to make sure there's a platform for knowledge sharing and peer learning across these innovation clusters. And we're going to try and foster really sort of long-term relationship building, long-term cooperation, so cross-border cooperation, thematic cooperation as well. So trying to really create a strong value proposition for existing clusters and new clusters to be part of this network, and a really strong interface between the projects that Built for People is funding and these clusters as one route to market. So Nebula really is about trying to overcome some of these barriers that we've highlighted already. And if you could jump to the next slide, please. So a couple of initial steps we've taken. We've started by mapping some of the venture capital and impact investors that are already out there that are funding things either very specifically focused on built environment or are funding things including built environment. So we've started to map that, capturing not only funds in Europe, but also funds, global funds that have a focus on Europe as well. So that's something that we will have as a resource to support companies in these innovation clusters, but also in the Horizon projects that Built for People supports. Next slide, please. And we're also going to build on some of the things that our network and no doubt the ECTP network is doing already. So here's just one example. So we have 23 green building councils across Europe. They have a membership base, combined membership base of about 5,000 companies already doing some really great stuff. And here's just one example from the UK. They have developed a solutions library, a platform where they are sharing innovative ideas, both in terms of products and services, and they're categorized in different ways. You can see, you just about read it on the slide, categorized according to different keywords. So you can search this library and find solutions. And that's just one of the things that our network is sort of already doing. So we're going to be building on that experience and ensuring that we sort of connect the dots between these existing initiatives and some of the existing clusters that are out there, and making sure that that's all brought together in this work that we're doing around Built for People. And I think that I may have one more slide. Yes, just a couple of closing questions from my side, and we've had some interesting discussions, interesting questions from the audience. I thought I'd turn the tables. Here's some questions that we are wrestling with a little bit and would be keen to hear people's views on. So I'm really interested to hear how we can support micro enterprises and SMEs better. I think Horizon's biggest challenge is the bureaucracy. It makes it very difficult for small companies and new players to really break into it. That's a key question. And also, you know, that we're working on this value proposition of this innovation cluster network. Why would companies want to be part of this network is something we're wrestling with. We've got some answers, but I'd be really keen to hear any suggestions that the audience today have around that. You know, what would motivate companies in the sector to get involved in a network of innovation clusters like the one that we're setting up under Built for People. And with that, I will hand back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, for an interesting presentation. So let's keep this slide so that the audience can look at this question. So maybe until someone raises their hand in order to respond, maybe I can ask a question. So first to Carmen, what do you think are the main bottlenecks applicants are facing when it comes to funding?
So I can speak from a much more general point of view. To be honest, I don't know exactly, so I don't know specifically the construction sector, but what I can see, so funding, because the bottlenecks are not only funding in the sense of, it's not only funding. So funding does come up always. And I would say if we talk about funding, European funding is there to support a lot of these projects, a lot of these innovations. And as we know, it's not always very easy to navigate the process of EU projects and putting together a proposal. And as everything moves quite fast in the ICT sector, sometimes it could be that by the time the call comes out, by the time the project starts, by the time everything comes out, it's not always very relevant. So the kind of thing that we want to fund. So funding itself, I would say, is the bottleneck. But apart from EU funding, that can answer this question, there is regional funds. Then there's a whole array of public funds. And what I can say in the general way is that there is money there is private money, and there's VC money and corporate money that is looking for innovations to invest in. And actually, this two examples I want to give about some innovations that came out and that the Innovation Radar highlighted were about so one of them, I'm just going to make sure that I don't kill the name. So one was called Material Mapper, and it's a Norwegian startup, which allows architects and construction companies to source reusable building materials from demolitions. So this is one thing, this is one company that secured 1 million round last week, thanks to DealFlow support. So when we're talking about funding and bottlenecks, for example, this is one way. European money is one way, but VC money does want to invest in market-ready innovations. And there's another one, another company that raised capital, and actually it's a spin-off of Delft University. And they also actually work, their innovation was also around the reuse of materials from construction sites. So I wouldn't just stop at the European money, which is obviously one way to look at it, but I think thanks to the Innovation Radar, the funding that might be a bottleneck for some companies could be bridged thanks to deal flow, investor relationships, and investor introductions.
Thank you, Carmen. And then a question for Stefan. What is the direction the partnership you think is going towards the coming years in terms of research?
Yeah, thank you. So the partnership has, as all of the partnerships do, has a strategic research and innovation agenda, an SRIA or a SRIA, whatever you wish to call it. So that maps out the direction that we as the private side of the partnership believe it should take. For us, it's about really, I think it's sort of summed up I would sum it up in two ways. One is people centricity. So it's in the name, built for people. So ensuring that the transition, the green transition, and if I think, we can also say the digital transition really is, puts people at the heart of what we're trying to do. So meeting the needs of users, but also of the workforce and wider society. So that would be one key element. And the other part for me is really a shift to a very holistic understanding of what a sustainable built environment means. And this is where I think, the vision of the European Bauhaus is important, an understanding that we need to think about the whole life cycle. We need to think about not only the energy efficiency of buildings, but also the embodied energy and carbon in their construction, the resource depletion, the biodiversity loss. And I think in general we're seeing that as a trend right across the the sort of policy and the sort of policy landscape within the region, within the EU. It's very encouraging to see that thinking is now being embedded into some of the key policy frameworks, and it's important that this partnership and this funding ultimately is supporting the industry to transition effectively towards that. So for me, that's the key thing here, that long-term trajectory towards a people-centric transition to sustainability in that fullest sort of holistic sense.
Thank you both. It seems we still have a few minutes, so I don't know if we have any questions from the audience. It doesn't seem so.
I think there's one I see here. I think Lucy Kennedy was asking is it only Horizon 2020 projects or projects funded via other EU member state grant funding for the Innovation Radar? For the Innovation Radar, so we do look at all, so only European money, so not the member state, but the member state grant funding programs. So everything that's EU program, well, everything. CEF doesn't go through it, but environment, yeah. So the environment program, the Horizon 2020, the DEP program will also now be looking at it. So yes, there's a lot. So there's a lot of programs we look at. However, the project offices of the projects have to be aware of the Innovation Radar and what they're doing, and have to actually use the Innovation Radar questionnaire, and have to invite innovation experts to the reviews. So that's why we always encourage POs to always think of innovation experts. Always bring in innovation experts during the midterm reviews in order to see if there's any, if there's a relevance to bring this in, they should think about it. I think that's the only question I saw that was for me.
Indeed. No, my only response to your last answer would be that for us, it's a common practice that we will invite experts in the final review when all the outcomes of the projects are finalized, so they have something tangible to also assess the innovation radar. So it's a common practice now that all projects are going through this process. So, and I think with that, I would like to conclude, and I will pass the floor to Philip for a final comment.
Thank you, all of you, and thank you, Eleftherios, for moderating. And I've been following the whole session. It's been really fantastic today and yesterday to see so many, innovators presenting what they're doing, talking about the challenges. I mean, it's really valuable input to us in the European Commission, not only for funding programs like Horizon Europe that we work on, but also for our policy making. So we'll be taking the input from today and yesterday. We'll have summaries of all the discussions put together for us for digestion and sharing across the Commission colleagues who are working in these areas. From our point of view in DG GROW, in the construction unit, we are working on the transition pathway of construction, which is in line with the industrial strategy. And so this the research and innovation will feature in the transition pathway. It's something that we've been working on for the past year, and we've had quite a number of these kinds of events of the High Level Construction Forum, looking at various different aspects of the green and digital transition of construction, and also the resilience. And so things like skills, innovation, circular economy, the renovation wave, and challenges also of infrastructure. These are all elements that are coming through and that will feature. We also look at, of course, we know at the moment we have high prices, not only of energy, but also of materials, which is affecting construction. And, in the long term, some of these, the green innovations in particular, like the circular economy, is one of the ways that we can reduce our reliance on raw materials and imports and so on. So, all of this green digital resilience is actually all linked together. And we've seen a lot today on the digital part, of course, with the data that needs to flow into construction projects and also be shared between them. And it's an active area of work. From our point of view, we really try and or our ultimate aim is to harmonize data formats and these kind of things, so that the data that designers and constructors need to deliver, to tomorrow's sustainable built environment is available in a way that is usable and comparable for all the different actors. So that's what we'll be doing with all the results and all the discussions. Very good input for us. It just remains for me to thank all of you for taking part. Well, yes, good luck to all the innovators, with all your projects, and thanks all for listening. And we'll and look out for the next installments of the High Level Construction Forum. We're planning more events like this in the future. Thanks very much, and have a good afternoon. Goodbye.